So there's a chance here that BattleBit is about to pull a Battlefield 5 era dice move. As we've said multiple times on the channel, everything we know about BattleBit is set to change in the next update. The developers are really taking a leave no stone unturned approach here, and that mentality has now stretched to the likes of the core gunplay, more specifically, the average time to kill. This has sparked one hell of a conversation in the broader community, and I'm getting a major sense of deja vu to the Battlefield 5 days. So naturally, we need to talk about it. G'day there once again viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today, let's dive into the one hell of a rabbit hole that is BattleBit's time to kill. So before we get too far into this one, guys, I did want to quickly outline the scope of today's discussion, because I know that the broader dev casts that have brought up these TTK changes have also included a lot of other points that are also worth talking about. We are only going to be focusing on the TTK because, let's be real, there's a lot to unpack here on its own, and I don't want this video to end up being too long. We will be doing a video in the next day or so that speaks to the rest of the discussion points in the development casts, so make sure you subscribe for that if you aren't already. On that note, if you do end up enjoying today's video, be sure to give that like button down below a good old backhanding for me, and come swing by our Twitch channel, which is the first link in the description down below. It would be great to see you over on our live streams as well. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's talk about time to kill, folks. Within BattleBit, yes, but also more generally across the broader first-person shooter space, because I've been watching a lot of the conversation about these changes, and while there are some very good, level-headed discussions happening here, I'm also seeing a lot of people who are exploding over these changes, so I think we all need to ground ourselves for a moment here to get the conversation moving. As the game currently plays, BattleBit Remastered holds a best case scenario baseline time to kill that averages anywhere between 200 milliseconds and 250 milliseconds, stretching to either side of that range depending on the weapon, its use case, and any special qualities it holds. For example, weapons like the Groza and the MP7 are both weapons that sit approximately around the 180 millisecond time to kill threshold, given they are more aggressive CQC orientated weapons. Weapons that are more adaptable or easy to control platforms typically fall on the lengthier side of the spectrum conversely. But for simplicity's sake, BattleBit's average time to kill for a weapon's maximum damage output range sits within the 200 millisecond to 250 millisecond time to kill, and has done so since the launch of the game. Now, in the upcoming update, the developers have indicated that they are intending to rebalance the game's entire arsenal to move towards an average time to kill of 400 milliseconds or thereabouts, with there obviously being some standouts that sit on either end of that scale, depending on playstyle, so on and so forth. Now, on paper, that may look really harsh, but in reality, especially in CQC, we are talking about a 150 millisecond time to kill increase here, which is close to almost double where the game sits now. And that will also have a flow-on effect of reducing magazine efficiency, or how many kills you can score in one magazine. This is also going to, of course, have a downstream effect on medium range time to kills as well, which we know the developers are actively seeking to nerf somewhat. But it's going to be a little bit harder to delve into those exact numbers in today's video without some hands-on testing, so we'll have to look into that another time. Now, we are yet to see exactly how this is going to affect each weapon in the game from a balance perspective, but from the latest devcast, we actually got a glimpse of how the M4A1 is going to operate and how its stats have been adjusted accordingly. And those changes are as follows. The maximum damage of 30 being brought down to 16.67, which, I get it, may sound like a lot. It's technically halving the damage, but it only increases the weapon's bullet to kill requirements by an extra 2 rounds on a 100 HP target. So that's going from 4 to 6 rounds to kill, and to compensate, a buff in the weapon's rate of fire from 700 rounds per minute to 750 rounds per minute, which actually lands us on an exact time to kill of 400 milliseconds within the M4A1's maximum damage range. Now again, these sound like pretty major changes here, but with that in mind, I want to make the following abundantly clear. The current time to kill in BattleBit Remastered is an incredibly fast time to kill in the context of the broader first-person shooter space, like lightning fast by comparison to a lot of the competitors that BattleBit shares in the non-milsim first-person shooter space. And I make that key delineation here about it being a non-milsim FPS game here for a reason, but I'll get into that a bit more shortly. As a means for comparison, and just to again further our understanding here of time to kill averages and thresholds, Battlefield 4 held a balancing approach that put time to kill in a range between 260 and 340 milliseconds. PlanetSide 2's baseline time to kills were between the likes of 460 and 540 milliseconds, and XDefiant most recently sits in the range of 300 milliseconds to 450 milliseconds. Just a couple of examples from games that I've had great exposure to over the years, and all of which, while being, yes, drastically different as far as gameplay is concerned, I consider to have very healthy gunplay and time to kill balances. And despite that these are all drastically different games, there is one thing that I want to pull everyone's attention to here in regards to all of these games and their time to kill models. They all sit above a 250 millisecond time to kill, even at the pointy end of the stick. And I make this point here and now for a reason, folks. 0.25 seconds, or 250 milliseconds, is the average human reaction time to visual stimuli. And the point being is that all of these games' time to kill ranges sit above the average human reaction time, and they do this for a very particular reason. It's to afford players coming under fire an opportunity to react, understand that they are in fact under threat, offer a chance for counterplay, and above all else, if they fail in that scenario, understand the how and the why they died. This is a very important element of balancing your first-person shooter games to be enjoyable in their nature. It ensures that players can understand the why behind their mistakes and have an opportunity to learn and even correct them in the moment. It's why that in games that are not simulation games or milsim games by any stretch, I argue that there is benefit in lengthier time to kills for PvP environments. Single-frame deaths with no warning lead to frustration and just a general sense of confusion, especially in a game that is as chaotic as BattleBit. But in saying all that, BattleBit and these other games are not a one-for-one comparison. It's unique in the sense that, its match sizes require that the gunplay affords players enough opportunity to cut through high concentrations of enemies with the intent of allowing matches to, actually move rather than being stagnant firefights. And it's always tried to be a game that meshes arcade and milsim FPS styles together with the hope of finding a middle ground. Milsim games often adopt more realistic damage models that allow even one bullet to kill you, obviously lending to a more quote-unquote immersive and realistic experience. Now, taking that on board, for me personally, the first factor that we just mentioned weighs a whole lot more on me than the second one as far as my personal concerns around these time to kill changes and where BattleBit should be going in the future. Because I get it, BattleBit has always held this goal of being the milsim arcade crossover game that players can get into, and a faster time to kill definitely lends itself to that crossover and leaning the game more towards that milsim focus. However, I always stand by the view that for games that are not an explicit milsim experience, that balance of gameplay and the element of fun should always take precedence over realism. If realism does not afford to fun, engaging, non-frustrating gameplay, then it should take a backseat to alternative approaches. That's not to say that you can build authenticity into your game and, make the game look authentic or feel authentic from a setting or environment design or things along those lines, but BattleBit is ultimately not an explicit milsim game, and while there is capacity for there to be some realistic or authentic elements in the game, a time to kill that sees players dying in ways that they can't learn from is not something that needs to be set in stone in this game's DNA, in my opinion. So that argument doesn't hold any water for me personally, and shouldn't get in the way of time to kill changes if they are healthier for the game. The concerns I have seen around targets become tankier and the game feeling far more stagnant in nature are certainly concerns that I actually end up sharing as well with these time to kill changes. Longer time to kills mean that breaking down fortified positions is going to be far harder to do, which in a game like this could very well snowball into very boring one-sided games. But as I alluded to earlier, folks, I do genuinely feel like a lot of people are going off their trolley about these potential changes, and it may be a slight overreaction here. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I very much agree that changing an entire game's time to kill threshold with what could be very to little to no testing is also a recipe for disaster. Again, I look back to the days of Battlefield 5 and the changes that they made to their weapon balance post-launch, and it's clear that things can go very wrong very quickly here. But I also note that the thinking behind these changes is in offering more opportunity for counterplay, offering a clearer skill gap in the gunplay that can be traversed by players in a meaningful way, and is going to improve a player's overall ability to react to the threats and learn from those engagements. I've seen a lot of comments that this is just going to help the veterans and the sweats and is going to do nothing for new players in the game. That just simply isn't true here, guys. A sweaty player can and will abuse the pros and cons of any time to kill baseline, no matter how you set it up, as they are doing with the current system right now. And quite frankly, the sweats of BattleBit are going to abuse this new time to kill system all the same. Nothing in that sense is going to change. But on the other end of things, having a longer time to kill across the board also means that newer players have more opportunities to understand what is actually happening to them. We have to remember that we are still talking about a sub 1 second time to kill in BattleBit here that often is featured in a lot of other first-person shooter games that we play on the regular now. It's not like players in BattleBit are about to become overly tanky bullet sponges that we see in games like The Division. The increase still sits under half a second here in total. Weapons are still going to feel lethal. Now, I also know that for many, the issue here is not the time to kill change in isolation, but also the fact that the movement side of the game at the time of the time to kill announcements was also assumed to be left unchanged. I agree that there would be problems here if we were to change one, but not the other. And while I don't want to get into too much depth here in today's video because it'll be a tangent that we'll be covering separately soon, there is inertia being added to 180-degree movement changes that will help to address some of these concerns. I agree that a time to kill change in a high movement game like this is likely going to lead to instances of crazy Giga Chad movers, tanking rounds and feeling unkillable. That deserves consideration as well, I 100% agree. However, BattleBit's shift to a more arcade, casual, and approachable experience is one that must be reflected in the core gunplay as well. I know people here were hoping for a more milsim focus with the game, but ultimately guys, I don't think that's where the game sits in the grand scheme of the market if it wants to be successful. I think the devs know this too now. There are already so many tactical milsim-esque games out there that operate on large scales. The market is well and truly tapped already. Meanwhile, the arcade FPS market by comparison is dry right now, especially from a large-scale perspective. It lacks innovation and holds so much opportunity for budding developers like the developers of BattleBit to settle in and to really make an impression here. BattleBit has been identified within the greater media as well as a Battlefield competitor. And while sure, you can add unique mechanics and approaches to the mix that mix things up entirely and make BattleBit unique, the core gunplay of your game is something that you need to get right and make sure that it is, enjoyable to interact with, both on the giving and on the receiving end of things. And while I don't necessarily think that BattleBit developers have gotten the gunplay design of the game wrong per se up until now, I'm also not opposed to seeing changes that makes the game more balanced in the long run while also affording more players the ability to react to threats as they need to. And once again, guys, we're not talking about such a massive shift here that is going to see the game put the time to kill from 0.25 of a second all the way up to 1 second plus. We are talking about a 150 millisecond gain here, 2 extra shots on the M4. Again, not massive game-changing changes in totality here. Good positioning, consistent aim, and the element of surprise are still going to be rewarded in BattleBit's gunplay like it always has been. These changes are not so drastic that they're taking that away from the game. There are just going to be less instances of you feeling like you're being deleted without an opportunity to react, which again is so important in first-person shooter games that are not explicit milsims. BattleBit can very much make this change without losing its milsim identity, especially with the changes they're making to the movement system, which we're going to go over in a bit more detail in a future video. So yeah guys, that's my piece on the time to kill changes that are coming to BattleBit. I know that many of you are likely angrily typing in the comment section down below because I know I go against the grain for so many people on this topic, but I am genuinely looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts and your likely rebuttals down below, and I look forward to that conversation. If you guys enjoyed the back and forth, feel free to hit the like button, and if you disagree with me so much that you didn't enjoy the video, then the dislike button is there for you to voice your thoughts as well. Once again, consider subscribing if you're new to the channel, and as always guys, come check out my Twitch link down below, first link in the description. It would be great to see you guys all over on our Twitch streams as well. But that's it for today's video guys. Once again, I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, hope you have a good one. Peace out guys, take care.